Now,
Sorry, that was preemptive. Let me pause that.
this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up this world, building up this world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up this world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up this world, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Won't let anyone blow it out. Won't let anyone blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. I won't let anyone blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. I won't let anyone blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Amen and amen. Oh, beloveds, do you know that you do have a light? And so this morning we are just all letting our light shine together. It is good to be together this morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Beth Johnson. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to worship this morning or this afternoon or this evening. I'm glad you could join us from wherever you are, or if you're watching a recording of this service later. In this time of pandemic, we are committed to providing ways for all of us to stay together and to stay connected even as we stay apart, to let our lights shine, to fan the lights in one of us. When one of our lights is dim, to know that, you know, we can let our lights shine for them, to nurture our spirits so that we can continue to heal the world. I want you to see our website, vistauu.org, for ways to connect, to sign up for emails and texts that will let you know the various ways that we're continuing to build the beloved community, the not yet always coming into being community of justice and love. Palomar Fellowship is on the tribal land of the Luiseño and the Kumeyaay Nations. And so is my home, where I'm speaking to you from. Each week, we acknowledge this with the lighting of a candle. Wherever you are joining us from, I invite you to take a moment and acknowledge the tribal land upon which you are located. If you don't know who the first peoples of land were and are, you may want to do some research into that. So glad you're here, and I'd like to invite the participants of today's service to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Lilly, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Moscato, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Good morning, I'm Michael Muffson, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
And we're so glad Emily is joining us as our tech person. Thank you.
And I am so glad you're here.
We ring the bell 3 times. Once for those who have gone before, once for those who are here now, and once for those who will follow. We are a sanctuary for those seeking and finding answers to questions of faith. We are a sanctuary for voices lifted up for peace and justice. We are a sanctuary for those seeking companionship in our struggles and our journeys. I invite you into worship this morning with words by Gretchen Haley. Life comes for us in 1,000 different ways, undoes plans and upends traditions, knocks down the doors of our defense in a moment. Every expectation releases like the in and out of the breath. Life is urgent and also unbearably slow, and does not take well to our fantasies of control. We gather here to practice surrendering to the waves of grace and grief, in song, in silence, in story. We come to remember the possibility of a larger call, that we may offer our gifts with a surprising generosity, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might release ourselves from the needing to know, that we might simply be present to this beauty, these partners, this hope that we make together. Come, let us worship together. It is good to be together.
Imagine with me for a moment. Don't worry, I'm not saying it's real. Imagine, if you can, that there has been not a calamity, but a great awakening. Pretend just for a moment that we all so loved our threatened Earth that we stopped going on cruises, limited international flights, worked on cherishing the places where we already are. In this pretty fantasy, everyone who possibly can stops commuting, spends extra time with their kids or pets or garden. We have the revelation that everyone needs healthcare, sick leave, steady work. It occurs to us that healthcare workers are heroes, also teachers, not to mention the artists of all kinds who teach us resilience and joy. Imagine, if you will, that we turned to our neighbors in mutual aid, trading eggs for milk, checking in on those who are elderly or alone. Imagine that each of us felt suddenly called to wonder in this moment, what does this world need from me? What are my gifts? Yes, I know it's just a fantasy. The world could never change so radically overnight. But imagine. Poem by UU Minister Lynn Unger.
Good morning. Oh, this new way of doing time for all ages when I can't see your individual faces. So I just have to imagine them for a moment, from my littlest to you big ones out there. Oh, you know, in January, we kicked off our first meeting for our Earth Care Ministry at Palomar UU. Beth and I met with over the time of that morning, probably 75 people who came to our meetings, really interested and really desiring a way to help our planet. And so we got it started. And we did a few things. We had a beach cleanup, and we had a 60-minute Saturday where we started working on our gardens. And we had our first green market, which was just such a joy and such an amazing thing to have happen. And then it all stopped. We were supposed to have our next 60-minute Saturday to work more on the gardens, and then we found ourselves staying at home and staying safe, which is where we should be. And I'm fortunate because I get to go to the fellowship because things still need to be watered and things still need to be tended to that I can't bring all to my house. But it made me feel sad when I think, sometimes about where's our Earth Care Ministry now? But you know what? It's here. And it's here even bigger than it was before this all happened. I want to talk about gift economy. Now, kids, we buy things and we trade it, we hand money or use our credit card or a check, and people give us things or they give us services. And that's the way our economy works. And there's other ways that people exchange things. There is a gift economy. Now, when we think of gifts, we think of Christmas or Hanukkah or Valentine's Day or a birthday. And those are wonderful and important times to give gifts for all the holidays we can think of. I have been watching the amount of amazing gifts that people have been giving to each other since the beginning of March. So what's great about a gift economy is a gift economy is one in which you give something without the idea that you're going to get something immediately back. The idea is to put in, and it can be by, when someone is really in need of something, like I know a lot of people have been in need of toilet paper, and I've watched people share toilet paper. So it can be that way when someone really needs something, or it can be a surprise, which sometimes is the most fun of all. So a lot of us have watched our community come together, and I've watched eggs being shared from people who have chickens, and I've tasted the most amazing peanut butter from someone who makes their own peanut butter at home that just tasted so good in my mouth. Not only because the peanut butter tasted so good, but because it was given to me as a gift. There's coffee cakes. There's masks to keep us safe. There's people growing things and sharing them. There's things that when people have bought too much, they look around and say, I don't need all this. I'm going to share it with people. I've been on so many walks where there's things that neighbors who I don't even know the name of have put boxes of fruits and vegetables and extra things on their front doorstep to share with the neighborhood. And it is felt so wonderful. And it has felt so wonderful because this is part of Earth Care Ministry. It might be the biggest part of Earth Care Ministry. And so whenever I see these things, it helps me feel very hopeful. Now, there's some of you who say, I don't have chickens, and I don't like to bake, and I don't have a way of making homemade peanut butter, and I don't know what I have to give. And I want to remind us of a story that I've read before at Time for All Ages, and definitely in the classes, about a teeny mouse called Frederick. And the whole story is about all these mice, the mice who collect the wheat, and the mice who pick the fruits, and the mice who get everything all ready for winter. And Frederick, the whole entire time, is sitting there daydreaming, and they keep saying, Frederick, you need to work, you need to work, you need to get moving, winter's gonna come. And he's like, I got it covered, and he's just daydreaming as everybody works so hard. And winter comes, and the mice are happy and safe because they're warm and they've got food. And then one day the food gets short, the stores get smaller, and the mice begin to worry. And they turn to Frederick and they say, Frederick, what have you done to help us with this? And Frederick starts reciting the most amazing poetry. He tells poetry about the sun rays coming down and the rain that came down and the things growing, and stories about his friends harvesting and getting everything ready. And it helped all the mice to hear these wonderful, beautiful stories and poems while they were waiting for that winter to end. So we all have gifts, and I'm urging everyone to think about this gift economy. And if you don't have something to give, like this, like if you're not making masks, oh my goodness, if I made a mask, you would not know what it would look like. It'd be like all over the place. But I had a friend who made masks. And if you don't have eggs to give or peanut butter to give or a coffee cake to make, write someone a note, draw someone a picture, call someone on the phone, and like Reverend Beth said, and just tell them that you love them. And you remember how wonderful it was to be near them in person, and that you can't wait until you can do that again. Thank you.
Our world is one world. Its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall.
Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to have this chance to virtually connect with you and to share my thoughts on the question, what if we don't get back to normal? I find this to be a curious question to ask because I think we left normal behind quite a while ago. We've been adapting and adjusting to a whole stream of new normals, at least since 9/11. The whole concept of normal is a problematic one anyway, so I propose we let go of the illusion of normality and plunge ahead. If you've ever been to a meeting or discussion group with me, you've probably heard me mention that I listen to current event podcasts obsessively. The podcasts I like take the time to delve into the complexities of our problems and present multiple perspectives to create a deep and broad understanding of what is facing us. This reflection has given me a chance to process and articulate all the voices swirling around in the podcast space in my mind, scary, I know, and share with you some takeaways. The consensus is that we are experiencing a transformational event and will emerge from the COVID-19 crisis forever changed. I think it is useful to consider what the crisis taught about our social systems first, and then we can imagine the possible outcomes. Just as a virus enters the body and forces a struggle that reveals strengths and fragilities, so the virus has entered our body politic with the same result. COVID-19 has laid bare the devastating consequences of short-term thinking that has dominated our social and economic systems in this era. It's like we've been feeding our body politic a diet consisting entirely of fast food profits, fructose corn syrup incentives, and red meat bonuses, while smoking a pack of fuel cigarettes and fossil fuel cigarette a day, a pack a day, and a host of other addictions. And so our body politic lacks the systemic integrity to handle the challenge of this sudden but predicted crisis. Short-term thinking measures the success of society by the sugar rush of the rising stock market, quarterly profit reports, and gross domestic product. These are abstract constructs that bear little relation to the lived human conditions of most of the world's population. Personally, I have my own sugar addiction, and I'm all too familiar with the sugar crash that follows the sugar rush. Believe me, it is not sustainable. Now, sometimes short-term thinking is necessary, though. Here in the early phase of this transitional event, most of us are overwhelmed with the necessary short-term adjustments and adaptations just to survive the immediate upheaval and uncertainty we are experiencing. I believe that we will settle into this phase of the transformation enough to find new rhythms within the confines of our shelters at home, for those of us fortunate enough to have a home. Soon, we will be able to give attention to the matter of how we will emerge from the crisis. Of course, there is a whole spectrum of possibilities. I frequently have to ratchet my mind away from the post-apocalyptic scenarios in order to imagine the very real likelihood of positive change. The best outcomes will depend on our collective efforts to imagine new possibilities and strongly influence the direction of change with our actions towards a better and more just society. We have the opportunity to change the very metrics we use to measure the success of our social systems. Instead of the short-term obsession with stock market values and quarterly profits, perhaps our well-being is better measured by the public's access to healthcare, welfare, education, and our capacity to spend time with our loved ones, connect with our community, and engage in service and mutual aid. There is already a groundswell of recognition that we are so interdependent that we can't just have social solidarity in the moments of crisis. We need to have it all the time. So many policy solutions that have previously seemed impossible have suddenly become thinkable and even desirable. Universal health care and basic income, paid family leave, and a strong social safety net, for example. When we take a moment to breathe, our long-term vision reveals crucial parallels with the greatest threat to our future, the climate crisis. Just as we have to flatten the curve of the COVID-19 virus, we have to flatten a similarly escalating curve in the longer timescale of climate change. We now have a visceral understanding of the devastating impacts of denial and delay. As we acknowledge the time we have already lost, we can turn our efforts towards making the immediate and transformational changes to flatten the curve of climate change and bring our social structures into harmony with the rest of the natural world. And finally, in the medium term, we need to return our attention to the 2020 election, which will be a crucial moment in determining how we will emerge from this crisis. Let's not lose hope. We are all in this together, and our deep interconnectedness will prove to be our greatest resource and our greatest strength. Thank you, Reverend Beth, for inviting me to offer this reflection, and I appreciate your time to me this morning. And now we turn to our congregational covenant. A while ago, the congregation spent a great deal of time and effort exploring our interconnectedness to come up with a covenant that expressed our shared values and how we want to be together in the world. And this is what we wrote. In mutual love and grace, we journey together grounded in profound respect for a diversity of beliefs and ideas, sustained by service and a shared ministry, enriched through collective spiritual deepening and a safe environment for all generations to thrive. And this is what we know. Together, we are more than we would ever be alone. And this is what we promise. Therefore, we promise to welcome and include everyone, to listen carefully and speak kindly, to help and share what we have with the community, Thus do we covenant with each other.
Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of light, come to me, come to me.
And that is our prayer this morning. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, come to us. In a way, the invitation for the Spirit of life to come to us, the Spirit of life and love to come to us, is really an acknowledgement, because we are never without that presence. We move in, through, and among the Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, God, the holy, the divine, the universe, by whatever name you know and experience it. This is what I want you to know. You are never apart from that. Beloveds, I invite you to breathe with me. Breathing in and out, and just taking this moment to take in all that we have heard. The poems, the words, the music. Breathing in and out. And while I can't hear you breathing and sighing with me, I know that the Spirit gives utterance in sighs too deep for words. And that we breathe together and sigh together and dream together of the world we wish to see. Breathing in, feel the presence of that Holy Spirit of life and love, and feel yourselves connected and rooted. We pause to breathe, to be held in community, and to behold the beauty of life amidst uncertainty and tragedy. So breathe again with me and rest for a moment in some silence. Feeling your breath move in and out. Precious breath. Breath of all life. Out of the silence come our joys and our sorrows. Those moments of celebration that we've experienced this week. As Kathleen spoke about the generosity of neighbors and the kindness of strangers, the ways in which we have indeed felt held and loved and heard and cared for. We celebrate that. We also hold in our hearts those sorrows, those worries for loved ones in the hospital, for those who are ill, for those who are suffering, for those who, when so many of us, but certainly not all, have the opportunity to shelter in place, have no shelter. May we make of ourselves a shelter in any way that we can. We pray for all the essential workers, the doctors and nurses and caregivers, the people working at stores, preparing food, frontline folks still working with the homeless, those without homes. We pray safety for those who must venture out, that we might be fed and safe. And we give thanks. In this time of uncertainty and anxiety, let it be. As we said last week, give it its due. It's okay. It's normal. And in all of that, know that you are indeed held in love and mystery deeper than you can know. Know even in your aloneness, bring in the spirit of life into your heart and feel that. Know that what it is indeed is the connectedness between us, through us, and among us. Take another breath with me. Knowing that this shared breath connects us all across space and time. I love you. Amen.
Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
And indeed is our heart, our hearts hearing a different call. I don't know about you, but mine is. Mine is hearing the call of the Spirit, the call of oneness, the call of the marginalized, the call of the oppressed, the call of life, calling to life, or as the psalmist said, of deep, calling to deep. Arundhati Roy wrote, whatever it is, coronavirus has made the mighty meal and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normalcy, trying to stitch our future to a past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. And in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we've built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse, she wrote, than a return to normalcy. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different, she writes. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Can we imagine? We are imagining. It's the question that Roy asked, that Lynn Unger asks in our chalice lighting, that Michael proposed in the readings and sharing that he did, and some of us can imagine. I know that by how quickly the quote from Arundhati Roy has spread and become a meme. It's taken from an article I read 2 days ago when she addresses issues in India and then expands her analysis to take in the world. Our world is indeed one world. What touches one affects us all. The seas that wash around about, the clouds that cover all, and the rains that fall. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who's the anniversary of whose assassination we marked yesterday, said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. This world is one world. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. There is no way to escape the fact that our destinies are tied up in one another. And this has always been the case." And I was tempted to say segments of humanity have forgotten or been unable to see that. But you know what? I'm often unable to see the depths of that interconnectedness or to live from it. Maybe I always know it's there, but sometimes it's difficult with habits and position and privilege to truly remember and live from that. Michael recounted the ways that systems of oppression have functioned to cause great injustice for the poor, for the marginalized. COVID-19 has revealed the fissures in our society and in our world. Indeed, indeed. Reverend Dr. William J. Barber wrote, "Epidemics emerge along and I think reveal the fissures of our society, reflecting not only the biology of the infectious agent, but the patterns of marginalization, exclusion, discrimination." He goes on to say, "We are seeing that our society is only as healthy as the sickest person. Our country is only as secure as the least secure homeless family, low-wage worker, indebted student, uninsured person. Times such as these require that we come together in bold, new ways and build a moral fusion movement that has everybody in and nobody out." Everybody in, nobody out. That is the call to imagining new ways of constructing our world. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where hearts hear a different call. In a recent article titled, "This is Not a Rehearsal," writer Hala Alian says, "This pandemic seems to have at its core a lesson of kinship. This pandemic seems to have at its core a lesson of kinship." And then she asks, what do we owe each other? What do we owe each other? Do we owe each other anything? While it is natural and expected that we would care for ourselves and those closest to us, especially in times of danger, is it possible to extend our notion of kinship to include those further and further and further? Those a world away and even other species. Our world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes of love or hate, we make a bridge or wall. What if we don't get back to normal? I agree with Michael. I think not normal has gone back much further in times when we estranged ourselves from the rest of nature, those of us who indeed have, and we are learning so much from our indigenous siblings who teach us that normal is living within the rhythms of nature. What if we imagine, as Lynn Unger in our chalice lighting words suggests, that we might so love the earth that we change our habits and so love each other and each other as those kindred humans and species across the globe that we do say, everybody in, nobody out. Nobody, not one of us. Not our immigrant kindred stuck in detention, or our siblings in jail, or workers or neighbors without homes, not our Native American kin, no one left behind. I suggest that we not try and go back to normal, but that we stretch our imaginations and reach beyond what we thought or were taught was possible. A new economy, an economy that takes into account everyone. If we are all kin, then everyone counts. Arundhati Roy again famously said, another world is possible, not only possible, it is on its way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. On a quiet day, we can hear her breathing. Gosh, this metaphor of breath in these times. It's a once opening and also has a whole nother layer of meaning, doesn't it? But it's on a quiet day, and these are quiet days. Are they not quiet in our outside of our homes, even if it's not so quiet in our heads? But as we quiet down, we imagine the world anew. Royce said this is a portal time, a gateway. We are indeed between the worlds. It's a pause, looking back at what we no longer want and what no longer serves us, and looking forward to an unnamed, unknown future, but a future that we are shaping even now. We are, in the words of the Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner, inhabiting the house we have yet to build. And so let us do that. Let us, in the invitation of Arundhati Roy, walk through that portal lightly, with little baggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. I'm ready. I'm ready. I invite you to join me, join us in that fight and in that possibility. Imagine. Imagine. We imagine and understand ourselves as not separate from the communities in which we are embedded, not separate from one another, and at our fellowship, we nurture and support our community near, close in, and our wider community. This is the beginning of a new quarter. At Palomar Fellowship, we share half of our undesignated collection with a local nonprofit. And this month, the new quarter begins today. And it's the time when Palomar Fellowship Board has chosen a new recipient to share our weekly offering. It is a joy to let you know that we're sharing this quarter with URISE, the Unitarian Universalist Refugee Immigrant Services and Education. It is a privilege and an honor to serve on that board. And I invite and introduce you now to Katja Hansen, the president and CEO of URISE, to tell us about URISE and their work. Katja?
Good morning. My name is Katya Hansen, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them interchangeably. I'm a longtime member of Palomar UU Fellowship, and I proudly serve as the president and CEO of URISE, Unitarian Universalist Refugee and Immigrant Services and Education. And I want to start by sincerely thanking you for choosing URISE as the recipient of this quarter's plate share. Your generous support will allow us to continue our forward motion, providing all services remotely during this pandemic. URISE is a nonprofit organization with a mission of advancing justice and human rights for immigrants and refugees. Our work at URISE is based on an autonomous empowerment model. We work with our clients so they understand and are an active partner on their case. Now, this is when I would normally tell you a story or two about someone we've helped directly, but in this political moment, I think it might be better to help you understand the breadth and depth of the work we do. So we do a huge amount of work for a small organization. We provide low-cost, direct legal counseling and representation, specializing in assisting the most vulnerable: immigrant victims of domestic violence, victims of human trafficking and other crimes, and people seeking asylum. We also help youth and young adults who come to the United States as children, the people we often refer to as dreamers. We work with them to renew their DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and assess if there may be other more stable pathways available to them. And we help people become US citizens and sponsor their family members to get green cards. Throughout San Diego and Imperial counties, we provide free legal services in the community via small and large group workshops and clinics. URISE developed and offers emergency safety plans, which empowers a family to avoid catastrophic loss in the event a family member is detained or deported. A safety plan consists of legal documents, including powers of attorney, that direct the client's wishes regarding their minor children, their home, their companion animals, and all of their belongings. We know that we can never prevent a detention and can rarely prevent a deportation, but we can help people create a plan and a process, empower them to avoid catastrophic loss. In the larger community, we offer education on issues related to immigration and human rights. We do outreach and organizing to help immigrants understand their rights and to advocate for their community's wants and needs. Through internships and volunteer opportunities, we provide hands-on leadership and advocacy training. Although we're based in Southern California, URISE is a national organization, and we regularly partner with UU campaigns such as Love Resists and UU The Votes and Side with Love, as well as the state action networks. And through this, we assist UUs and other liberal religious congregations around the United States to deepen and broaden their work on immigrant justice. We provide trainings, workshops, and resources for worship and RE, as well as consultations and technical assistance on issues from developing accountable relationships in the immigrant rights community to the discernment process for becoming a sanctuary congregation or joining or developing an accompaniment network. As I'm sure you can imagine, the way we provide services has had to change greatly. In the past 3 weeks, we've moved all of our legal counseling and representation that was previously happening here at Palomar UU Fellowship, at our satellite office in Chula Vista on the South Bay campus of First UU, at MiraCosta College, and at Cal State San Marcos. They've all moved online. Now all are virtual meetings. So now instead of setting a simple appointment, our team is working with clients to get them set up for Zoom meetings via their phone or tablet or laptop. Thankfully, smartphones and other devices are pretty ubiquitous right now, and we've only had a few people who haven't had access to an internet-enabled device. We'll be rolling out our first virtual workshop in the community in the next couple of weeks. So this is exciting and scary all at the same time. Additionally, daily we are compiling and sharing resources available to people regardless of their immigration status. Resources such as free and low-cost internet, where there are food distribution sites, and resources on preventing COVID-19 in many different languages. Truly, this quarterly plate share comes at the perfect time. Thank you again for choosing URISE. Your support has helped us become who we are, and your continued support is helping us grow into who we're needed to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katya. Thank you so much. I am continually inspired by the work that URISE does, and in this time, oh my, thank you. Well, beloved ones, you do have an opportunity to give, to continue to support the work of URISE and to support the work of Palomar Fellowship. We have a couple of ways for you to do that. You can do it the old-fashioned way and write a check and mail it to the fellowship. Our administrator comes in once a week and picks up that mail. And you can see now, in just a moment, you'll be able to see that you can text to give. You'll see the instructions on the screen there. We want to thank you for your generosity. Your gifts allow us to continue to do the work of building the beloved community. As I say, the not yet, but always coming into being community of justice and love. Thank you, Kimberly. Your music and you are a blessing. Another reminder to check out our website, email, to find the ways that as we stay away, we can stay connected. Thank you to all who participated in this worship. Appreciate you and all of you who've joined us. And I invite you to join us in our chalice extinguishing words. Although we extinguish this flame, we carry in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment until we are together again. And this is what today has been about. What if we don't return to normal? We know that we don't want to. So the only way to do that is to build a new way. The lyrics were sent out in the order of service. So if you know them, sing along. We won't be able to hear you, but we will hear Kathleen. And so Kathleen, thank you. You wanna just teach us how to build a new way. Can you do that for us?
I will try. I will do my best. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
How many of you sang along with Kathleen? Kimberly, thanks for putting the words in the chat. Leanne says she did. And so, friends, go in peace. Be makers of peace. Until we meet again. I love you. Okay. Our service is ended. You can go ahead and write into the chat perhaps, and we'll connect in that way. Wonderful to see you all singing and folding laundry. I love that. Shay. Good to see everyone. I'm glad you're here. So good to be with you all. Thank you, Katya, for being here. Lane says this little light of mine is her hand washing song. So we can all think about that. Stay tuned for opportunities to connect this week. It's a big week. We enter Holy Week in the Christian tradition, and Passover begins on Wednesday. For those of us who practice the Hindu practice, Tuesday is the Hanuman Jayanti, and at the end of this month, on the 23rd, our Muslim siblings begin Ramadan. So it's a holy time. Everything is holy now. So stay tuned to find out ways that we can connect. Okay, beloved ones,